Hello and welcome to another episode of Up Close at Upward Studio. I'm your host, Brian Esposito, and today with me is Will Austin. Will is the principal broker of RentSimple Property Management. Hey, Will, how you doing?
Thanks for having me. Finally got together.
Yeah, definitely. We've been planning to do this for I'm pretty sure three or 4 months now. First time you got stung by a bee in the eye.
Yeah, right in the eye.
Right in the eye.
Yeah.
That's fun. And then I got sick about 3 or 4 times, so...
But we made it. We're here.
We made it, and
we're doing it.
Yeah, ready to talk about property management with the expert. So we'll start off with an easy one. What are your deepest fears and regrets? I'm just kidding.
Oh gosh, I was like, I got a lot of them.
Can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and about your property management company, RentSimple?
Yeah, so I started RentSimple essentially it was actually perfect timing. So it was March 2020. So if you remember anything back, or you might have blocked it all out. But I had this idea to start a company because I was already doing property management, but I was just kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. Like just, we'll put a tenant in your home, we'll take a percentage, and if they call us, they won't call you. Mm-hmm. We'll handle everything. So I had the great idea, launched it in March 2020. We're going to do, in Northern Virginia only, we're going to do guaranteed rent. So if your tenant doesn't pay, we're going to pay on their behalf. And we're also going to cover damage, which is kind of crazy. And I don't know if it was going to work in other markets, and I don't plan on testing it out. But we know Northern Virginia. I grew up here, so I know it's a great market for rentals. We've got a nice product to offer our tenants. So we saw like we don't do many evictions. Our tenants are pretty good. So why don't we offer this to our owners? And it's gone pretty well. The pandemic, obviously, I was scared.
Yeah.
That because they said pretty much you didn't have to pay your rent.
Yeah.
But it kind of spoke to my point that our tenants are good, and most people, I mean, some didn't, but most paid their rent. So
yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. We obviously, we know each other from doing your photography and stuff for your rental listings. Which, by the way, I guess most property management companies don't do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you manage the photography, and you put out the listing that looks nice and professional. Can you speak to that a minute?
Yeah, so that was one of the concepts too. It's like we're gonna focus on high end. Like we're gonna attract high end clients. We're gonna attract high end tenants. We're gonna get high end properties. So we have to be more high end. So I used to go around. I had like a Nikon DSLR camera. Yeah. And sometimes I would catch myself in the mirror, take it and you still see that now. Yeah. You still see even real estate agents do that when photography companies like Upward Studio can do a great job and they do it efficiently. Yeah. So we use you guys to do professional photos, videos, and then so it just helps. Like most of our properties, I think, rent before people even see them. Yeah. Because the first impression is not when you walk in the door; it's when you see it on the internet.
Right, definitely. So yeah.
That's all part of our kind of like just raising our standards a little bit so that we can offer this kind of unique service.
Yeah, great. And so when we do work for you, it's a pretty wide area. So, what is your area of operations?
Nova, just Nova. So I would say like the western edge or northern would be Leesburg, all the way down to Warrenton, and then kind of cutting across just into Fairfax. We kind of stop at Woodbridge and then go up towards Arlington and Alexandria.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So Nova is just such a unique place. And I think once you get outside that area, it's a little bit different of a client base and a little different of a home because it's a lot newer around here, most homes.
Right. So can you kind of speak to that, the point of the clientele and the market in general when it comes to rentals in Northern Virginia?
So most of we call our clients are our owners. They're the landlords. So that's who we speak to. And they are what we call accidental landlords. So an accidental landlord is someone that obviously got into being a landlord by accident. So I would say we work with a lot of State Department people, a lot of people in the FBI, military, and they bought their home to raise their family there, but doing what they do, they know that everything's up in the air. So every 3 years, they might go somewhere else. They might not always be at the Pentagon or Fort Belvoir or something like that. So, but they say, you know, I got this great interest rate.
Yeah.
Why should I sell it? Why not keep it forever? And who knows, we might come back here. So we want to have something to come back to. So the type of client we get is someone that takes care of it, isn't just like an investor. They're not trying to nickel and dime the tenant. They just want to offer a good home. They want to make a little bit of money. Of course, we all do. But they also want to have to do the right thing by the tenant. So that's like who we're trying to attract.
Gotcha.
For lack of a better word.
Okay. Yeah, and how is the rental market, especially I guess we could speak seasonally as well.
Yeah.
We're in winter now. How does that affect things?
Winter's always like a little bit scary around this time of year, but everything's great. I would say it doesn't necessarily run inverse to the sales market. Obviously, when more people can sell their homes, like during the pandemic in March, 2020 on to like probably 2022, rentals were good, but like there wasn't a lot of people jumping in to be a landlord.
Right.
Now that's changed. Now everybody's like, oh, interest rates are up. Like it's not as easy to sell your home. It's not automatic. You're not going to get 50 grand over ask anymore.
Right.
So they're rethinking it to say like, I should probably consider that I have a 3% interest rate. I should hold on to this for long term. So I think it's stabilizing. So a lot of our properties used to rent. We used to have 20 applications in a matter of days. Now it's more, I think it's normal. It's where it should be. So we rent properties probably an average of 2 weeks it takes, which is still very good.
Yeah.
And we get essentially 5 or 6 applications to choose from.
Okay.
Which I think is healthy. It's not like it was before.
Yeah. So how does your structure work when it comes to that? I know most agents will typically collect like the first month rent as a fee for representing the rent, the rental, and then you obviously have a monthly arrangement for monitoring the property and all that.
We still charge a month to place the tenant because we're real estate agents.
Yep.
Unless because it's we don't just do the leasing of it, we'll do the management too. So if a new client agrees to be a client for more than 3 years and rent out their home for more than 3 years, we'll reduce that down to 75% of the first month's rent. And then we have 3 different plans we offer. So it's basically goes from our essential plan is 8% per month to our premier plan is 12% per month. And we have a plan in the middle, which is kind of a hybrid called our professional plan at 10% per month. And think of the premier plan as like everything's guaranteed, damage is guaranteed. Like if we put someone in the home, you can just go to your bank every month and know that the money's going to be there. And if you come back to your home, it's going to look exactly the same. Even if the tenant punches a hole in the wall, we're going to pay for it. So the professional plan is kind of a cross between those two. We're going to cover up to a certain amount if we have to evict a tenant. And the essential plan is essentially what most property management companies offer, except we always guarantee pet damage because pets are just, everybody has a pet now.
Yeah.
So if a pet does any damage to our client's home, we're going to cover the cost of it no matter what.
Okay. Great. So that speaks a little bit to the difference between, RentSimple and other property management companies. Can you expand on the differences?
Yeah. Well, I would just say we've kind of touched on all of them, but we're hyper local. We're just in Nova. We're a family-owned business, and just those guarantees, you're just not going to see it. Most property management companies, not to talk bad about my competition, but they're kind of glorified rent collectors. They're better than doing it yourself, obviously, but we're backing it up with something that's actually concrete.
Right.
And we're niched down. So like a lot of property management companies will be property management companies, and we also do sales. And we also do X and Y, HOAs, something like that.
Yeah.
We're just doing rentals.
Yeah.
So that allows us to spend all of our time and energy and focus on just doing rentals. Which we love, which sounds kind of crazy to love rentals, but we do.
Great. Can you elaborate on long-term equity appreciation versus, get rich quick schemes and its benefits for investors?
So a lot of first time landlords will have read like Rich Dad Poor Dad or something like that, where it's just all about cash flow. How much money can you make? And that's great for a typical investor client. But here in Northern Virginia, it's not considered, by most investors, long-term equity appreciation, because they're in kind of volatile markets like the Midwest or in Las Vegas or Arizona or something like that. In Northern Virginia, we have long-term equity appreciation, which is kind of rare. You can pretty much set your watch to home values going up because we're stabilized by the federal government.
Right.
So one of the things I try to teach our new landlords is that you might not be making more than a couple $100 a month in the first year when you factor in costs, placement costs, repair costs, vacancy costs, but you are going to make some money. But really, you need to think about how much money is your property increasing in value, which we call appreciation. And there's also tax deductions you can take for being a landlord. So the thinking long term is really the key to like making money in Northern Virginia.
Okay, great. You touched on this a little bit here, but what advice would you give to people who are looking to become first-time landlords?
Yeah, do it. I think conventional wisdom is just like, if you don't live in your home, sell it. But like, you have to get past that first hurdle of like, it's scary. A tenant's gonna burn the home down. That's not going to happen.
Sirens in the background.
That's not going to be one of our properties.
That's not one of yours.
I guarantee it. So just getting over that initial fear, because it's not common to do. But I mean, Warren Buffett always says, the key to long-term wealth is holding real estate forever. Yeah. And he knows a little something about generating wealth. So if you want to make money, don't just default into, I need to sell my home because that's safe. Safe doesn't make you money. Taking a little calculated risk might make you money. And that's what we try to do, is mitigate that risk or completely eliminate it if you need us to.
Yeah. Gotcha. DIY versus going with a property management company. What are your thoughts?
Great example is I wanted to DIY, like shooting videos of myself, and I decided not to do it because you need to go with someone that's an expert. If you DIY, you need to you need to assign a cost to your hourly rate, sort of like a lawyer would do.
Sure, yeah.
And what's your time worth? If your time's not worth that much, then maybe try to do it yourself, but you're going to make mistakes in the long run, and they're going to cost you. It's not automatic. A lot of the times we'll get clients that will come to us and they've tried to do it themselves. And it's the same thing I hear all the time. It's like, well, we kept the rent pretty low because we just didn't want to lose that tenant. Yeah. And
you get emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Like, they were nice.
Yeah. And then, they just had a baby, so they missed, a month of rent. Yeah. And we let them do a couple of repairs. So like we took some money off the rent, and come to find out they're like $600 to $700 undervalued because they've never raised the rent. They've never inspected it. Yeah. And then that tenant moves out and they don't know what to do. And they're like, wow, this wasn't as great as I thought it was. Like the tenants were kind of taking advantage of us. Yeah. And that doesn't happen all the time, but you can't do that if you've got a full-time job and a family. So I think DIY culture, and this is speaking to a larger kind of context, but I think it's kind of toxic, and I hope there's a shift going away from it, because we have access to everything at our fingertips now. Yeah. We can be an expert in so many things, but we just don't have the bandwidth to do it, and it's stressing us out. Yeah.
It's definitely it's a fault of my own, actually. Sometimes I tend to like to do a lot of things myself, and sometimes it's just best to leave some things to the experts.
Because you can watch a YouTube video on it.
And exactly.
Try to do it, and you're just
to speak directly to your point, when I met my wife, she had a townhouse in West Virginia, and so when we moved and bought a house in Virginia, we rented it out, had a tenant for a few years.
Did you DIY?
We had DIY'd it.
Oh.
They were super nice people, it seemed. We were very lenient on the rates. We even gave them like a month or two for free during COVID because they were struggling. and had babies, so we felt,
So all of the above.
all of the above, and we got screwed. They left, and it was just a mess. They destroyed it. We had to replace carpets. We had to replace, do $8,000 of work on the place.
Well, you are not alone.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
Thank you. I should lay back.
But it's a
therapy
DIY
session.
trap.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. And I try to even around the house, I can paint and I enjoy painting, but it might not be the best use of my time.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's a great point is calculating out, what an hour means to you and in terms of your rate and also what you could, be doing that is, makes you more money or makes you happier,
And not to just harp on this issue, but the stakes are elevated. There's court, there's your mortgage.
Yeah.
There's just so much more money involved.
Yeah.
It's just don't do it.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Great. What trends have you seen that have, changed in the past few years when it comes to property management and rentals in general?
Oh gosh.
I'm sure there was a big change during COVID and
yeah. So I think property management as a whole is tightened up as there's more legislation, which I think is good. Initially it's scary because you don't want people telling you what to do. But there's more requirements of property managers because before you didn't even need to have a license to do it. So it was largely unregulated. Now there's associations you can join to get training, which is good as a whole because you're not just having a real estate agent trying to act as a property management company. So I think there's more resources out there for property managers. There's more services we can provide our tenants. And I think largely it's gone away from this me versus the tenant to now, we actually call our tenants residents because they are.
Yeah.
So it's being nicer all around. It's not just the big greedy monopoly landlord.
Right.
It's we're a housing provider. We're not just in it to make money.
Yeah.
So I think being more, I don't want to say inclusive, but doing more for your tenant, doing more for your resident, offering a better service, putting a better product out there. I think that's globally kind of changed perspectives.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception when it, amongst residents, tenants, that landlords are just, he's money hungry, people who just are, rolling in dough, on the back of, the tenant. But, 99% of the time, that's really not the case.
Yeah.
And like you said, most of your client owners are just people who are accidental landlords.
Yeah.
Right?
There's more landlords out there.
Yeah.
So there's more compassion out there.
Yeah.
It's not just the guy who's collecting 20 or 30 properties and trying to make money.
Yeah. Squeezing every
yeah.
Yeah. How do you measure your success in both in terms of client satisfaction and the performance of properties?
Really, I want to say, that we have this fancy way of having a net promoter score and we're always reaching out for feedback, but we just measure our success based on the relationships we have. So I'm very involved in the business. Our team is very much incentivized. We have a bulletin board where we pull all our good emails up that we get from our tenants and our owners.
Nice.
And just try to build that relationship. And we don't lose a lot. We don't lose a lot of tenants and we don't lose a lot of owners unless, someone's moving back into the property for whatever reason. But really that's it. Just maintaining a long-term relationship, I would say, is how we measure success. Great. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And with your focus solely on rentals, if you have a client who says, "Okay, I'm going to sell my place now," do you don't we don't do it. You don't do it.
Yeah. We used to.
Yeah.
But hyper focus just on rentals, so we'll refer it out. This would go against the DIY toxicity culture that I'm preaching against. In every market, there's an expert. So we have relationships with real estate agents that we'll refer it out to.
Great.
And it's better all around, because we can't do as good a job as them. It seems like easy money, but it's just not. And that's not what we're motivated by.
Okay, great. looking ahead, what trends, do you maybe foresee in the future for this industry, and how do you plan to, perhaps stay in the forefront?
So I think with marketing, it's become a lot easier. So not only like AI, but like you can promote yourself as a business easier, but you can also promote the property easier. What we do now, also, we've done this for 2 years now, and I think the trend is finally catching on. We do self-showings. So if a tenant calls us on the weekend, like they'll get a link to go view the property on their time. So they're not waiting for a real estate agent to come out.
Yeah.
They're not waiting for me. I'm not waiting for them.
That's nice.
And they're doing it. I think we have our open hours are between 8 and 7 p.m. at night. So any vacant property we have, they go get a code, they check in, they view it,
Nice.
They give us feedback. So we get a lot more volume that way.
Yeah.
So it rents quicker.
Oh, you don't have to meet everybody out at the property too. Yeah.
And initially I was scared by it. I thought we were taking kind of a calculated risk, but I get this question all the time. It's like, well, what happens if you get squatters, or what happens if someone just damages the home, or it's a party house? It's never happened.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. We back it up.
Yep.
It's never going to happen. And if it does, in a rare occasion, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Like it's money.
Yeah. I mean, that's the safeguard or guarantee's got to be huge.
And you would never, if you were a DIY landlord, no way, way too scary.
Oh yeah.
But like with
Definitely.
experience, like you can learn to take these risks, which is way the industry is going. So you got to be on board or get left behind.
Great. Yeah. And lastly, some people say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Oh yeah.
How does that sort of resonate with you?
Gosh, I would say I'm learning to love what I do. It's not like we're not selling kittens or cotton candy, but it's hard from day to day. But I think what really gets me out of bed in the morning is my ideal client. Like I met with someone the other day that was unsure if they should, and I knew 100% that they should rent out their house. And as I'm leaving, he says, like, Will, just tell me I'm doing the right thing. And I was like, you are why I do what I do. You're 100% doing the right thing. You're going to have something to leave to your kids. You're going to make money on this, and you're not going to have to think about it. So that gave me a little bit of juice.
Yeah, definitely.
To keep doing what I do for at least a couple more months.
Great.
Hopefully for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
No, I think we covered it. Yeah. I think we're good.
Well, thank you for coming on today.
No worries,
It was
man.
Very informative, good conversation.
Yeah.
And
hopefully I get invited back.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And whenever you don't get stung, and I'll try not to get sick. So if you want to reach out to Will, if you have a property, if you're interested in renting out, your contact information is?
I'll flash it on the screen.
Yeah.
Just my website. I mean, it's a great resource for tenants, for residents and owners.
And what is it?
RentSimple PM, as in propertymanagement.com.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.